Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Grab a notepad, grab a pen, because I want you to take notes. I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you will jot down some sort of action item that you can implement in your business today. Remember, that's what this is all about, implementation to drive your business forward. Perpetual refinement, continuous improvement. Hopefully, anytime we discuss something, you come up with something, some way that you can move your business forward that day through implementation. And remember, it's not necessarily a matter of the topic we're discussing. It may be something completely different. It's that thing where, you're putting your brain in fertile soil, so to speak, and these discussions stimulate you, and it may be something completely unrelated to what we're talking about, but you pause the video at that moment, you jot down a note, and you don't have to credit anybody but your own brain for the ideas that you implement in your business. In fact, I'd like to talk to you today about the distinction between entrepreneurs, investors, and managers. And I hope that is of interest to you, because I think it's important to have these definitions. And the reason why is because it will help you to determine which of these you are. Maybe you know right now, or you have a perception that you fit the description of one of those more than the other, or perhaps you don't know the distinction. But as we make some distinctions, this will help you to become more effective, and as we like to say, to improve your management skills and grow your business. So let's start off and think about this. What is an entrepreneur? A lot of people might say, oh, an entrepreneur is somebody who has a great idea and they implement that idea in the marketplace. That's a good place to start. That's not how I would define it, because I would say to you that idea generation is best left to be decentralized. Now, I will acknowledge that being a good idea generator, someone who's very creative and generates ideas on an ongoing basis, that's an asset to entrepreneurs, and it's also an asset to managers. But ideas can be a dime a dozen. So when I earlier gave that definition and I said someone who generates a good idea and then implements it, then now you're starting to get more into the definition, I suppose. The implementation part is what makes the person the entrepreneur. Having the good idea, as I say, ideas are a dime a dozen. That's why when I talk about decentralizing generation of ideas, I'm referring to involving other stakeholders, putting more heads together. You want the cumulative experience, the cumulative creativity and intelligence of a group of people who are like-minded, who have aligned objectives, and they all have a vested interest in the success of a particular project or a particular idea and implementation. And that's where you get the most well-rounded idea. So it may be that you, as a business owner, are really good at generating ideas, but if you're not involving your team, then you are stifling progress, and your ability to implement those ideas is compromised. So once again, the idea in and of itself does not make an entrepreneur. So I started off with, we spent a few minutes talking about the idea of, or rather, the concept of having an idea does not make one an entrepreneur. So what does? So when I think of an entrepreneur, my definition is more along the lines of someone who puts his own capital and his own resources at risk as he endeavors to implement an idea of a product or service within the marketplace. So the key here is the investment. Now, that's why we have to say, okay, so then what is the difference between an entrepreneur and an investor? Well, investors can be silent partners. They don't necessarily contribute toward the implementation of any idea, to bringing to market the innovative products and services. So that's what is the difference between a pure investor. There is a relationship, of course, between the entrepreneur, management, and investing. Those concepts, entrepreneurship, management, and investment, those concepts are all integrated in the business cycle and in business in general. But when we're defining what are we, what are you as a business owner? Are you an entrepreneur? Yes, if you've got skin in the game, that's the key. If you've got skin in the game, you've got your own resources at risk, you are an entrepreneur. As long as you are also contributing toward the management. Now, so then are all entrepreneurs managers? I would say yes, they manage to a certain extent, but not all entrepreneurs are good managers. So that's why we have to differentiate between managers and entrepreneurs. Yes, entrepreneurs are engaged in management to a certain extent, but they should recognize the limitations. Not all entrepreneurs are good managers, and when you recognize that, then a good entrepreneur will delegate management elsewhere. And that's where management comes in. Management is now the organization and deployment of those resources, but you may have no part in the ownership of those resources. In other words, those resources are provided to you as the manager by the investors and entrepreneurs, and you are now using more tried and true methods for, as I say, organizing and deploying those resources. So when we think of management, that's the difference there. It's the skin in the game. Now, of course, a manager may have skin in the game. He may have an investment, and then he leans more on the spectrum, I guess. He's more of an entrepreneur. If somebody has no management skills and they just are deploying capital, or that is they're investing, then they're more of an investor. It's a critical concept to understand because so many of the people I interact with, they are business owners and they also think of themselves as managers. And I've already said, to a certain extent, they must be a manager. Just as I've said in the past, to a certain extent, all business owners have to be in sales in some way. That doesn't mean you're naturally gifted in sales, and it doesn't mean you're naturally gifted as a manager, but you recognize that when you're in business, entrepreneurs have to have management. A business needs management, and a business needs sales. And so what good entrepreneurs do is they recognize where their contributions are most valued, and that's where they spend their time, and they delegate the rest. So if they recognize, I'm not very strong at sales, then they would hire, or they would somehow get a sales team put together. If they realize, I'm not that strong in management, then they would delegate management elsewhere. And that's where, that's actually the concept behind my business, is that Bickert Management Incorporated, BMI, was founded with this notion that oftentimes the entrepreneurs, those people who invested their own capital and started a business, they've got a business going, they aren't particularly gifted at running the business. They may be really good at contributing in some way. And I give the example often of, say, a healthcare provider, a person who got into business because they really love people and they want to try to care for people, and especially care for those who are suffering in some way, the sick. And that's a very worthy thing. And then to invest something in that, to set up some sort of practice and invest in the equipment and maybe a rental space, a lease on a brick and mortar location that the patients come to and everything, that is skin in the game. So that person is, of course, they're a business owner, they are entrepreneurial, but do they have management skills? Some of them do, some of them don't, and I've seen both in healthcare and of course other industries. When you recognize, I'm not particularly gifted when it comes to organization or that deployment of the resources. I often waste the resources. I find, maybe I shouldn't have invested in that equipment at this time. Maybe I didn't make the best decision in terms of handling the lease negotiation details or those kind of things. That's where really good introspection and self-analysis is good for entrepreneurs. And as I was starting to say, that's where I founded this business, because I recognized that, and I wanted to provide help and say, look, we can do the management aspect for you. You can do your investment, and it can be your business, and you get to run it, and you get to contribute in whatever way you want, but we will make sure that you don't struggle in terms of management. So it's very critical to understand the difference. Sometimes entrepreneurs have this notion, and it's a flawed way of thinking, that they must be a manager. Now, if you have a knack for it, if it's your forte, if you're a good manager and an entrepreneur, then good. But when you're not, again, the introspection is necessary. And I'm asking you to define this for yourself today. There is one thing I will say about entrepreneurs, that even though they may not be particularly gifted at management, they may not understand the theory behind proper management, they may not understand all the axioms and first principles that make for good management practices, they often succeed in spite of that, and it's the skin in the game. It's because they are incredibly persevering. They are uncommonly persevering. They have great fortitude because they have so much at risk. And when you've got an investment in something, it's that profit motive that drives you. And they succeed often in spite of maybe having less than stellar or even less than average, subpar management acumen. It's because they are very innovative. They make up for it with their other skills. And that's one of the things when we make a distinction like this and we have these definitions, okay, an investor, an entrepreneur, manager, and where do they fall and what's the integration? We have to remember that all of us are a diverse set of skills and paradigms and ideas and everything, and we want to leverage those things which are our greatest strengths. And that's what I see in entrepreneurs, again, because of the profit motive and because they have skin in the game, they have an investment, they have a risk, they are very good at mitigating further weaknesses, even unconsciously or subconsciously. They do things to offset their weaknesses. Now, I've also observed that weaknesses stay in place, and maybe some of the aspiring managers or people on your team, if you share this video with somebody else, or if you're not one of those three definitions, you're not an investor, you're not a manager, you're not an entrepreneur or business owner of any kind, and you're watching this, or whatever you are, you could probably think of somebody who owned a business who did not do that self-analysis, that introspection, and they thought they were good at managing, and everyone around them, their team, could see, oh boy, you really upset people, maybe they're a little bit abusive, their humanities skills were lacking or whatever, and they should have delegated in that area, but they did not. We've all experienced people like that. Now, I'm hopeful that many of you are watching this video and you tune into my videos because you are trying to improve your management skills and grow your business, as we say at the beginning. That's the objective of these videos. And so you are becoming better at management. So you're that investor who is contributing your own value toward a business, and you're trying to mitigate those weaknesses, and you're trying to become a stronger manager. And of course, in any of the areas that you just recognize, I'm never going to be good at that, then I hope you'll reach out to a company like mine and allow us to provide you the services in an area that you're weak. But I really appreciate those who are trying to improve in a particular area, because management, as I said, it's kind of more about the tried and true methods. And I've learned so much in management the hard way, trial and error. And I can save you a ton of time by sharing with you in these videos and through the services we offer how to avoid the pitfalls of poor management, because there are some universally applicable principles that work in management. We try to think from first principles point of view and take everything back to basics in terms of management. And as an entrepreneur, you sometimes have so many plates spinning, you got so many balls in the air that you're juggling, whatever metaphor you want to use, you're wearing so many hats, all these types of things, that you don't have the time to figure out that you're actually hurting the business in one way due to poor management. My advice in that case would be to take an area that you have the most interest in. You sort of have a passion for it, and you might have a bit of a knack for it, and you just maybe lack some knowledge, you lack some experience, and by investing in that area, you can really strengthen your business. Don't try to be all things to all people and all things to your business. So many business owners, and I respect you, you guys are the lifeblood of our economy, and I'm so upset to see what has happened with central authority intervention that has created rules that's putting people out of business or skewing marketplace and labor markets and that kind of stuff, skewing and distorting all the market conditions that make it so difficult for you, and many of you are struggling and many have gone out of business. That really bothers me because I truly believe a robust economy is critical, or rather, you as a business owner, you entrepreneurs are critical to a robust economy. Your proliferation, your thriving is what, you generate employment, you generate, you drive down prices for all of us. We all have a better standard of living because of you entrepreneurs. So I really respect those who are trying to learn in one particular area. And getting back to my advice, pick that one area that you think you can make the greatest contribution in. So for example, marketing. You might say, I have a bit of a creative flair. I have a good mind for advertising. I've always looked at advertising and been critical of it, and I've had an appreciation for good marketing campaigns and poor advertising strategies. I can pick those out. These types of things may give you guidance as to where you should spend some time learning, and then focus on our marketing videos, for example. Or you might be more logistically inclined. You think more like an engineer. Maybe that's your background in terms of what you took in school or what you thrived at. You're like, well, I was really good at math and physics. Those things really appeal to me. And so it may be the logistics and the processes. And you see things like a blueprint. You can put them together in your mind and reorder things, and then you can focus on videos like those that we have created about 5S and automations and delegations, and you can think about the various ways that you can improve your business from a logistics point of view. And you might say, I'll leave the marketing to someone else. I'm not particularly aesthetically inclined, and I don't really have a great deal of interest in that area of the business, but I do want to improve my processes. And then you focus on our Muda video series, for example. Or maybe you're a people person. You've always been good with people. That's why you wanted to be in business. You like the interaction with your customers and your team or whatever. And then that's where I would recommend you take a look at our videos on human resources and on onboarding and training and recruitment and performance evaluations and development of your team, these types of things, accountability, all of these things, the humanities part of the business. I really get excited by that one, and yet so many people don't have a strength in that area. Again, if you don't have a strength, you need to delegate that. Reach out to us or someone else on your team who has that strength. But if you have an interest in that, and that's sort of what you look at when you do that introspection, you say, I am a people person, I really am, then focus on that and grow in that area of your management. Little by little, you can always add to all of these areas, but I think it is important for us to be realistic and say to ourselves, I'm just not particularly good at this. We've got a video entitled something about generalist management, and that was a term I came up with for my style of management. I want to learn a little bit about a lot of things, but not be particularly a specialist in any one thing. And when you run a bigger company, you need to do this. You have to have your eyes on a lot of things, and then let the details be handled by someone else. Delegate those details to somebody who can specialize in that. And so maybe that's what you want to do. And you watch these videos and you're like, I just want to learn a little bit about a lot. But hats off once again to the entrepreneurs. I hope the definitions are clearer to you right now. I'm going to provide some sort of visual cue for you, and you can download that and take a look at it. There is an integration. So the investor, that's a person who puts his own capital at risk, but he doesn't necessarily contribute in terms of management or any kind of value toward the implementation and bringing the products and services to market. Just an investor. You think of that as like a silent partner or an investor in the stock market or something like that. They are valuable and they're imperative. We need investors. And then a manager is somebody who executes those tried and true measures of operation of the business, which is how you organize and deploy the resources. But the manager doesn't necessarily own any of the resources. He's playing with other people's money and has to be very careful. That's one of the reasons they kind of stick to the tried and true in general. They may be less innovative than an entrepreneur, because they realize this isn't my money I'm playing with here, so I got to be careful. I'm not going to be as risky when I implement ideas. And then the entrepreneur is a combination of those two. It's like he's an investor, he's got skin in the game, and he maybe manages, even if it's just to the extent that he manages by hiring someone to do his management. That's management in and of itself, that recognition. And then he contributes in some way. He recognizes, like in my example of the healthcare provider, he's like, well, I'm going to focus on what I do best, which is care for patients. Or if you're some kind of contractor or tradesperson and you realize, no, I'm really good working with my hands, and I have uncommon skill and a great deal of specialized knowledge that I can employ and deploy in my business, and that's where I'm going to contribute. But I'm going to let somebody else run the office and the administration, the humanities portions of the business and that kind of stuff, the customer service. That's the idea. So what did you get out of this? When you wrote down any notes today, what are you going to implement in your business? Have you got a definition? Where do you fall in all of this? I think most of you are probably business owners. That's who I typically, I set out when I started to create these videos, I set out with the goal of I was going to provide this information to predominantly my clients and customers, who typically are business owners. And then I was like, yeah, but I want to provide them with management skills. And so I started thinking, well, I'm going to create these videos also for managers, and managers on my own team and managers on my clients' teams. And managers can look, and then I thought, well, aspiring managers as well. And then often I'm like, oh, share the video with your team, because the concept's in here. You never know who would be a good succession plan and grow into management. But more than that, the culture we're trying to, there's no secrets here. It's like the culture we're trying to instill within our organizations can be done by communication, and sharing this video is a form of communication. So there you go. That's where I want to leave it today. I hope you got something out of this and you will have a better definition of yourself and do some of that introspection. What are you going to implement in your business today? Put something in the comments there. Give me some pushback. What is your definition of an investor versus an entrepreneur versus a manager? If you agree with me and you've identified in your own life that it's like, yeah, I used to try to manage and be all things to my business, but now I realize I had to delegate certain tasks and my business took off after that. Leave those kind of comments, because other business people and other managers and entrepreneurs within the community, they read that and they learn from that. And we need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.